They made me sign a voluntary waiver of family support. Today they need money for my nephew's treatment. I unlocked my phone and showed a transfer, but not to who they thought. The phone rang at 7 in the evening as I sat in the kitchen with a cup of cold tea, staring at my laptop screen, where an unfinished 3D model of a chair for the next catalog was frozen. It was already getting dark outside, that time when the day seems tired, but the evening is not yet ready to let go. Claire's name lit up. I hadn't spoken to my sister in 2 years. My finger hovered over the screen. Answer or ignore. After some hesitation, I pressed the green button. Patricia. Claire's voice trembled so hard that I immediately sensed the insincerity. She always knew how to cry on demand. Patricia, I know we haven't talked, but it's Marvin. He has leukemia, a rare form. The doctors say we need to start treatment immediately. Otherwise, she paused, waiting for me to rush to her aid. I remained silent. We need money, Claire continued. $25,000 for the first course of treatment. We've raised some, but it's not enough. Patricia, he's your nephew. He's only 8 years old. I knew what was coming next, and I was right. There was a rustle on the line, then a sharp click, the speakerphone. Patricia Devlin, my mother's voice sounded as if she were reading a sentence. Do you hear what your sister is saying? The child is dying, and you sit there with your stupid drawings and pretend it doesn't concern you. Maureen never understood what I did. To her, 3D visualization was stupid drawings. To her, everything I did was wrong. Wrong career choice, wrong fiancé, wrong lifestyle. You've always been selfish, my mother continued. But now is the time to correct your mistake. If you have even a shred of conscience left in you, you will help your nephew. I looked at the phone and felt something cold spreading through my chest. Not anger, not pain, just absolute clarity. Do you remember the paper you made me sign 2 years ago? I spoke slowly, clearly. The same document about voluntarily refusing any financial and moral assistance to the family? There was silence. Then Claire laughed nervously. Patricia, that was different. Back then, you just didn't want to help with the house repairs, but now... Now Marvin is sick, I interrupted. I understand. I just wonder why you remembered me now. After all, 2 years ago you made it clear that I was no longer part of this family, that I had no right to interfere in your affairs, that my opinion didn't matter. You know Mom was upset then. Claire tried to speak more softly. You refused to give me money when I was having such a hard time. But that's in the past. Now it's more important. Now my son. $20,000 for home repairs. I opened my laptop and quickly found the folder with the screenshots, which actually went toward a new pickup truck for Rainer. I saw the photos on his social media a week after you urgently needed the money. A red Ford F-150. Nice car. Maureen gasped. Claire spoke faster. That's not true. You're just making it up to justify... And you know what's interesting? I interrupted her again. My hands weren't shaking. Neither was my voice. I did send the money for Marvin, just this morning before you even contacted me. $15,000. I heard a muffled, "What?" Then Claire exclaimed, "Oh my God, Patricia, thank you. I knew you couldn't." Only I didn't send it to you. I opened the photo gallery and found a screenshot of the payment. I transferred the money directly to the Hope for Children charity, which supports cancer patients, with a clear note, for the treatment of Marvin Coleridge, 8 years old, diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, a rare form, as you said. The silence was deafening. What have you done? Maureen hissed. I did what had to be done, I replied calmly. If Marvin is really sick, the foundation will contact you, check the medical records, and transfer the money directly to the doctors. If not, well, then you'll have to explain where all those urgent meetings you've been having for the past 2 months have gone. Are you spying on us? Claire screamed. I smiled, although they couldn't see it. No, I wasn't spying. It's just that one of Claire's friends, Viva Lenstern, My former classmate accidentally wrote to me a month ago. She asked if everything was okay with Marvin because Claire had flooded Facebook with posts about fundraising for his treatment. I replied that I didn't know because we weren't in touch. Viva was surprised. She said it was strange because Claire tells everyone what a caring sister she has, who also helps. Then I started digging, and I found a lot of interesting things. Patricia, Maureen's voice became dangerously quiet. Do you realize what you just did? You've betrayed your own family. I just protected my nephew, I replied. If he's really sick, the money will go towards his treatment, and if not, then it's not my problem. You're a disgusting, cold bitch. I gave birth to you, I raised you, and you... I hung up the phone. I put the phone on the table and stared at the dark screen for a long time. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. Did I need to explain how I got to this point? How quiet, obedient Patricia, who always helped, turned into a person capable of hanging up on her own mother. In the fall of 2018, my father, Dennison Devlin, passed away. Pancreatic cancer took him in 4 months. From diagnosis to funeral, he was the only person in the family who treated me like a grown, intelligent woman. He took an interest in my work, asked about my projects, and was proud when I showed him my latest kitchen or living room designs for the furniture factory catalogs. After his death, something broke. Maureen instantly switched her attention to Claire, the younger, more vibrant one, the one who had managed to give birth to a grandson. Claire had been married for 3 years to Rainer Coleridge, a car mechanic from a neighboring town. They lived in a rented house on the outskirts, constantly complained about debts, and Maureen regularly helped them with money from her father's insurance. I helped too. I gave them $500, $1,000, when Claire called with urgent problems. Either the car broke down, or they had to pay extra for kindergarten, or Marvin needed medicine. I never refused, because what else could I do? I lived alone in a rented townhouse and worked as a 3D designer at a small studio called Vision Space, which created furniture visualizations for catalogs and websites. The salary wasn't crazy, but it was stable. No one's life depended on me, but Claire had a child, until I found out the truth. It happened in the spring of 2023. Claire asked for $20,000 for urgent roof repairs. She said it was leaking, insurance didn't cover it, and it had to be done immediately. I had just spent all my savings on dental treatment. I had a wisdom tooth removed, it became inflamed, I had to have surgery, antibiotics, and repeat visits. $7,000 gone in a month. I turned Claire down, saying I just couldn't afford it. She was offended. So was Maureen. But the worst happened 2 weeks later when Rainer posted a photo of a new red pickup truck on social media with the caption, "My dream has finally come true." Viva sent me a screenshot. I didn't believe it at first. I wrote to Claire and asked about the roof. She replied that they had found another solution. I started checking. It turned out that over the past year, I had given Claire almost $12,000 for various emergencies, none of which were true. When I tried to talk to Maureen, she said, "Claire needs support. She has a child, a husband, responsibilities. And what about you? You sit alone in your little nest and draw furniture. It's easy for you to judge." At that moment, my laptop, my main work tool, broke down. I urgently needed $3,000 for a new one because the old one couldn't be repaired. I asked Maureen. She had money after selling her father's old car. She refused. She said it was my own fault for spending money on my teeth instead of saving for a rainy day. I took out a loan at a terrible interest rate. And then Maureen offered a deal. She would give me the $3,000, but I would have to sign a document waiving any claims to my father's inheritance and agreeing not to interfere in Claire's family affairs. A notarized document. I was exhausted. Physically, emotionally, financially. I signed. I took the money, paid off the loan, and didn't hear from the family for the next 2 years, until today. I opened my correspondence with Viva and looked at the last message she sent last night. "Patricia, I'm very uncomfortable writing this, but I can't remain silent. Marvin isn't sick. He had anemia, but it was cured 3 months ago. Claire asked me to confirm the leukemia story if anyone asked. I refused. I'm sorry to drag you into this, but you need to know. I took another sip of cold tea and looked at my watch. According to my calculations, Claire was now frantically trying to figure out what to do next. The phone rang again. Unknown number. I didn't answer. The next morning, I blocked Claire and Maureen's numbers. I just pressed the button and felt relieved, as if I had taken a weight off my shoulders that I had been carrying for years. I went to work as usual, stopped at the same coffee shop on the corner, ordered my usual Americano, and sat down at my computer in the studio at 9 in the morning. Our studio, Vision Space, was located on the second floor of an old brick building in the city center. It was a small space with 6 workstations, a kitchenette, and a meeting room. I worked there for 7 years, creating 3D visualizations of furniture, and sometimes helping with interior design projects. My boss, Celia Harper, a 50-year-old woman with gray bobbed hair and a perpetually furrowed brow, appreciated my punctuality and the fact that I never caused any drama at work. Before lunch, I finished the chair model and started working on a sofa for the spring catalog. My colleague, Marcus, a 27-year-old guy with red hair and a habit of tapping his pen on the table, sat across from me and muttered something to himself as he edited textures for a kitchen set. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I took a break and went downstairs to the nearest shop to buy a sandwich. I came back with a bag, climbed the stairs, and saw him at the studio door. Rainer Coleridge. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing dirty jeans and a gray t-shirt with the logo of some auto repair shop. His face was red, his hands clenched into fists. He was smoking, leaning against the wall, but when he saw me, he abruptly threw away his cigarette butt and stepped toward me. Patricia. I stopped 3 meters away from him, holding the sandwich bag like a shield. Rainer, what are you doing here? What am I doing? He laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. I came to talk to you because you're not answering your phone. I blocked your numbers, I said calmly. After yesterday's conversation, it was the smartest decision. He stepped closer. I didn't back away, even though my heart was pounding. Do you know what you've done? His voice rose. You sent money to some foundation, and now they're demanding a bunch of paperwork, medical reports, hospital records, test results. We don't have time for all this bureaucracy. Marvin needs treatment now, not in a month, while these bureaucrats check every dot. If Marvin is really sick, the documents will be there, I replied. Leukemia is diagnosed in the hospital. There are blood tests, bone marrow biopsies, consultations with oncologists. It's all recorded. You don't understand, he waved his hand. You sit here in your office drawing your nonsense and thinking you know better than everyone else. And there's a child dying, Patricia. Dying, and it's your fault. It's my fault? I was surprised by the sincerity with which he said it. He himself seemed to believe his words. I sent money for treatment. If Marvin is sick, he'll get it. You're killing him with this bureaucracy. Rainer moved even closer, and I smelled tobacco and motor oil. You've always been jealous of Claire. Always. Because she's a real woman, with a husband, a child, a normal life. And you? Lonely, angry, unwanted. The studio door opened. Marcus peeked in, saw the scene, and quickly left. Patricia, is everything okay? Yes, I replied, without taking my eyes off Rainer. This is my brother-in-law. He was just about to leave. I'm not going anywhere, Rainer hissed. Not until you fix what you've done. Patricia, shall we go inside? Marcus shifted nervously from foot to foot. Should I call... Call who? Rainer turned to him. The police? For what? I'm just talking to a relative. This conversation is over, I said, and walked around Rainer, pushing open the studio door. Marcus let me pass, but Rainer managed to grab my elbow. You'll regret this, he whispered. I swear you will. Marcus pulled his hand away. Let her go. Now. Rainer let go, but his gaze was so intense that I felt cold. I went inside. Marcus followed me, and he locked the door. Through the glass, I could see Rainer standing in the hallway, looking at me, then turning abruptly and walking toward the stairs. God, Marcus exhaled. What was that all about? Celia came out of the conference room and looked at me warily. Patricia, who is that? Family problems, I replied briefly. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. I hope so, Celia grimaced. If he shows up again, we'll call the police. I nodded and went to my desk. My hands were shaking so badly that I had to sit down and wait for my heartbeat to slow down. Marcus brought me some water, silently placed the glass on the table, and returned to his work. I couldn't concentrate for the rest of the day. In the evening, when everyone had left, I sat at my computer and Googled private investigators. I needed proof. If Claire and Rayner were really cheating, and I was sure they were, I needed facts, documents, something concrete. I found several agencies, read the reviews, and chose one, Barker Investigations. It was a small agency owned by Leon Barker, a former cop who specialized in family matters and financial fraud. The reviews were good. I wrote an email, briefly explained the situation, and asked for a meeting. The reply came in 20 minutes. I can meet you tomorrow at 5 in the evening. My office is at 32 Sandy Street, Office 4, Leon Barker. I confirmed and went home. The townhouse greeted me with dark windows and silence. I went in, locked the door, took off my shoes, and went to the kitchen to make tea. I put the kettle on, got a cup, and heard the lock click on the front door. I froze. I turned around. Maureen was standing in the hallway with a key in her hand. How dare you lock me out? Mother spoke quietly, but there was such fury in her voice that I involuntarily backed up against the wall. How did you get in? I looked at the key. Where did you get the key? I made a copy a few years ago. Maureen came inside and closed the door. In case something happened to you, but now I see that I was worried for nothing. You're perfectly fine, sitting here in your little nest, destroying your own family. Get out, I said, right now. You have no right to be here. I'm your mother. She came closer. I have the right to be anywhere when it comes to my child. I'm not a child. I'm 35 years old. You're selfish, heartless. Get out. I raised my voice for the first time in many years. Get out, or I'll call the police. Maureen stopped. She looked at me as if I had hit her. You'll call the police? On your own mother? Yes, I took out my phone. If I have to, I will. She was silent for a few seconds, then threw the key sharply on the floor. Keep your damn key. But you'll give me back the money, all $15,000, because that money was supposed to go to Marvin, and you stole it from a sick child. Marvin isn't sick, I said. He's never been sick. He had anemia, which was cured 3 months ago. Maureen's face changed. Surprise, then anger, then cold fury again. Who told you this lie? It's not a lie, I said, holding the phone ready. And I'll prove it. Now get out of my house. Maureen walked to the door, opened it, but turned around on the threshold. You'll regret this, Patricia. I'll do everything I can to make you regret it. She left, slamming the door loudly. I locked all the doors, picked up the key from the floor, and stood in the middle of the hallway for a long time, trying to catch my breath. The next morning, I called a locksmith and had the locks changed. All of them. On the front door and on the back door, leading to the small courtyard. It cost $250, but I slept more peacefully, knowing that no one would break in without my permission. In the evening, I drove to Sandy's Street. Number 32 turned out to be an old 2-story building with peeling paint, and office number 4 was a small room on the first floor with a sign on the door that read, Barker Investigations. I knocked. I heard, "Come in," and I entered. Leon Barker sat at an old wooden table covered with folders and papers. A man of about 45 with gray stubble, tired brown eyes, and broad shoulders. He stood up and held out his hand. Leon Barker. Are you Patricia? Yes, I said, shaking his hand. A firm, confident handshake. Thank you for seeing me so quickly. Have a seat, he said, pointing to a chair across from the desk. Your letter caught my interest. Tell me more. I told him everything. About Claire, about Rayner, about Marvin, about the medical fund, about the transfer to the foundation, about Viva, who had told the truth. Leon listened attentively, writing something down in his notebook. "Are you sure the boy isn't sick?" he asked when I finished. "Viva wouldn't lie," I replied. "She's known Claire since childhood, and she refused to confirm a false story. And the fact that they are so stubbornly refusing to give the documents to the fund also speaks volumes." Leon nodded. "Okay, I need their details. Full names, address, Rayner's place of work, social media accounts, if any. I'll start by checking their finances. If he really did spend the money on something wrong, there will be traces. Cash withdrawals, transfers, possibly debts to bookmakers." "How much will it cost?" I asked. $300 up front plus $100 per day of work, Leon said. "If I find something quickly, I'll refund the difference. If it takes longer, I'll let you know." I nodded and took out my wallet. I wrote a check for $300 and handed it to him, along with a sheet of paper where I had written down all the information about Claire and Rayner. "I'll contact you in a few days," Leon said, putting the check in a desk drawer. "If I find something sooner, I'll call you right away." I thanked him and left. On my way out, I stopped and turned around. What if I'm wrong? What if Marvin is really sick? Leon looked at me calmly. "Then you'll apologize and help him for real. But if your intuition is right, you'll save not only your money, but also other people who might be deceived by them." I nodded and went out into the street. The evening air was cool and smelled like rain. I got in the car, started the engine, and drove home, feeling a strange mixture of anxiety and relief. 3 days later, Leon called. I was at work doing another visualization of the dining table. I looked at the phone screen, went out into the hallway, and answered the phone. "Hello, Patricia. It's Leon," his voice sounded pleased. "I have news. Your suspicion has been partially confirmed. Rayner Coleridge has debts, $15,700. He lost it at an underground poker club 3 months ago. His creditors started pressuring him, threatening him. He tried to raise money in various ways, borrowing from friends, taking out microloans, but it wasn't enough. And then, apparently, he came up with the story about Marvin's illness." I remained silent, feeling a chill spread through my stomach. "Are you there?" Leon asked. "Yes," I replied. "I'm here. What about Marvin? Is he really healthy?" "I'm checking the medical records, but it will take longer," Leon said. "I need access to his medical file, and that's more complicated. But if you want my opinion, if the child had been sick, there would be signs of treatment, visits to the oncologist, tests, hospitalization. So far, I don't see anything like that." "Thank you," I said. "Please continue." "I will," he promised and hung up. I stood in the empty studio hallway holding the phone and feeling the world around me become clearer and at the same time more alien. They were lying. All of them. Claire, Rayner, even Maureen, because she surely knew about the debts, and they were all willing to use a child's illness to get money out of me. I went back to my desk, sat down at the computer, but couldn't concentrate. My hands reached for the phone. I wanted to write to Maureen, write to Claire, expose them, shout that I knew everything, but I held back. I had to wait until Leon did a full check. In the evening, already at home, I opened my laptop and went to Claire's Facebook page. The last post was dated the day before yesterday. A photo of Marvin, a smiling boy with curly dark hair, and the caption, "Thank you to everyone who supports us during this difficult time. Marvin is hanging in there, but he still has a long road ahead of him. Every prayer and every bit of help means a lot. Fight for Marvin, Sachi, help the child." Below the post were dozens of comments expressing sympathy, hearts, and promises to pray. I closed the tab and felt nauseous. The next morning, I woke up to a phone call, unknown number. I didn't answer. A minute later, a message came from the same number. "Patricia, this is Rayner. We need to talk, urgently." I blocked the number and went to work. Leon called again a week later. I was sitting in a coffee shop near work, trying to focus on sketches for a new project, a series of chairs for a children's room. but my thoughts kept wandering back to Claire, Rainer, and that damn transfer. "Patricia, I have some information." Leon's voice sounded serious. "Can we meet today?" "Yes," I glanced at my watch. It was 3 in the afternoon. "At 5 o'clock? Better at 6. I want to show you something interesting." I agreed and spent the next 3 hours in tense anticipation. Marcus asked me twice if everything was okay. My face must have given away my state of mind. I waved him off, saying I just hadn't slept well. At 5:30, I was already in the car, driving along the familiar route. I parked and went up to Leon's office. He met me with a folder in his hands and invited me inside. "Have a seat," he said, opening the folder on the table. "What I've found is quite unpleasant. Are you ready?" "Yes," I said, clasping my hands on my knees. "Okay. First, this isn't the first time Rainer Coleridge has been involved in such schemes. 3 years ago, he tricked my cousin Claire's aunt, Esther Voigt, into giving him $8,000 under the pretext of an urgent operation for Marvin. Heart surgery, he said. Esther lives in another state, trusted him, and transferred the money. 6 months later, she accidentally found out that Marvin was healthy, but by that time, Rainer had already changed his phone number and was not answering. Esther did not go to court. Her age, her health, she did not want a scandal. I listened, feeling my jaws clench. 2 years ago, Leon continued, a similar story happened with Claire's maternal uncle, Ralph Hester. $5,000 for Marvin's asthma treatment. Ralph didn't pursue the matter either. He just stopped communicating with the family. Why did Claire let him do that? I said. Maybe she didn't know. Leon raised an eyebrow. Or she knew and kept quiet. It's hard to say, but there's one more detail that will surprise you. He took out several printed photos and placed them in front of me. In the first one, Rainer was at the bar, hugging a slender woman with long blonde hair around the waist. In the second, they were sitting in a car, kissing. In the third, they were entering a motel on the outskirts of town together. This is Janice Corbin, Leon said, 31 years old, bartender at the Golden Deer pub. They had been dating for about a year. Rainer told her that he was divorcing his wife, that Claire was a temporary mistake, and that they would soon be together. Janice believed him. She waited. I looked at the photos and couldn't say a word. Do you want me to pass this information on to Claire? Leon asked. I paused, then shook my head. No, I'll tell her myself, through Viva. Are you sure? Yes. Leon nodded and put the photos back in the folder, but left one out. Here, if she doesn't believe your words, show her the evidence. I took the photo, the one of Rainer kissing Janice outside the motel. I hid it in my bag. How much do I owe you for the extra work? I asked. Nothing for now. Leon smiled slightly. It was part of the basic investigation. But if you want me to keep digging, for example, to find documents about Marvin's medical condition or track Rainer's financial transactions in more detail, then it's an additional $300. Go ahead, I said, and wrote another check. That evening, I wrote to Viva, briefly, without unnecessary details. Can we meet? Urgent. I have information about Rainer that Claire needs to know. Viva replied 10 minutes later. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., coffee shop on First Avenue? Okay, I replied. The next day, I was restless the whole time. I could barely concentrate at work, and Celia pointed out flaws in the models twice. I corrected the mistakes and looked at the clock. Time was passing unbearably slowly. At 7, I was already sitting in the cafe on First Avenue at a table by the window with a cup of cappuccino that I didn't drink. Viva showed up at 7:15, a short, plump woman of about 33, wearing jeans and a light-colored blouse, with short hair and a tired face. She worked as an assistant in a dental clinic, had 2 children and a long-distance truck driver husband whom she saw once every 2 weeks. Hi, Patricia. She sat down opposite me and ordered tea. What happened? I took the photo out of my bag and silently placed it on the table. Viva looked at it, her eyes wide. What's this? Rainer and his mistress, I said. Janice Corbin. They've been together for a year. He promised her he'd divorce Claire. Viva picked up the photo. looked at it closely, then put it back on the table. "Oh my God, does Claire know?" "No, and I want you to tell her." "Me?" Viva shuddered. "Why me?" "Because if I tell her, she won't believe me," I replied calmly. "She'll think I'm getting revenge, that I'm making it up. But she trusts you. You've been friends since childhood." Viva was silent, twirling a teaspoon in her hands. "I don't want to get involved in this," she finally said. "I have my own family, my own problems. Claire almost yelled at me when I said I wouldn't confirm the leukemia story." "Viva," I leaned forward. "Rainer is a fraud. He swindled money from 2 of Claire's relatives under the pretext of Marvin's illness. He collected several thousand more from strangers through a charity fund, and now he's using Claire to get money out of me. If she doesn't find out the truth, he'll destroy her completely." Viva looked me in the eyes, then at the photo, then back at me. "Okay," she sighed. "I'll tell her. But if she doesn't believe me, I won't get involved anymore. Deal?" "Deal," I said, handing her the photo. "Thanks." Viva took the photo, put it in her bag, and quickly finished her tea. "I have to go. The kids are waiting." She left, leaving me alone with a cold cappuccino and a heavy feeling in my chest. I knew it would be difficult from here on out, but I couldn't stop now. 2 days later, Viva wrote, I showed her. Claire didn't believe me. She said you hired someone to frame Rainer. She's furious. She says she's going to sue you for defamation and invasion of privacy. Patricia, I'm sorry, but there's nothing more I can do. I read the message 3 times and felt nothing. I wasn't even surprised. Claire had always been like that, blind to the truth when the truth destroyed her world. I replied to Viva, thanks for trying. She'll figure it out herself. That evening, when I came home from work, Maureen was sitting on the steps of my townhouse. She hadn't knocked or rung the doorbell. She was just sitting there with her head bowed, looking so small, so old, that for a moment I didn't recognize her. Mom? I stopped a few feet away. She raised her head. Her face was swollen from crying, her eyes red. Patricia. Her voice trembled. Can I come in? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, turn around and drive somewhere where she wasn't. But another part, the part that remembered her reading me bedtime stories when I was little, baking birthday cakes, stroking my head after nightmares, that part nodded. Come in. I opened the door, and Maureen followed me in. We went into the kitchen. I put the kettle on and got 2 cups. Maureen sat down at the table and buried her face in her hands. I knew everything, she whispered. About Rainer's debts, about poker, about him lying. I knew. And I kept quiet. I froze with the kettle in my hands. Why? I finally said. Because I was afraid. Maureen raised her head, and I saw despair in her eyes. I was afraid of losing Marvin. Claire threatened me that if I didn't take her side, she would take the boy away and I would never see him again. And you 2 and him are all I have left after your father's death. I was silent. That paper, Maureen continued, about refusing help, that was Rainer's idea. He wanted to isolate you so you wouldn't meddle in their affairs, so you wouldn't expose the lie. I knew it was wrong, but I made you sign it. Because it was easier that way, and for Claire, for Rainer, for me. And you were always so strong, I thought you could handle it. She took an envelope out of her bag and put it on the table. I found this last week when I was going through your father's old things, letters you wrote to him before he died. He hid them, didn't want me to read them because he knew I was jealous. Jealous? I didn't understand. Of your relationship with him, Maureen smiled bitterly. You were always close. He understood you, but I didn't. I saw my unfulfilled dreams and my dissatisfaction in you. I took the envelope and opened it. Inside were 3 sheets of paper covered in my handwriting. I recognized them. They were the letters I had written to my father when he was in the hospital in the last weeks before his death. Letters in which I talked about my dreams, about how I wanted to have a family someday, have children, build a home where it would always be warm and safe. "I destroyed that in you," Maureen whispered. "Me and Claire. We took away your belief in family. I'm sorry, Patricia. Please forgive me." She cried, quietly, helplessly. I sat across from her, holding the letters, and felt something tighten in my throat. For so many years, I had wanted to hear those words. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. You are important." But now that they had been spoken, I felt only exhaustion. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said honestly. "It hurts too much. It's been too long, even now." Maureen nodded. "I understand. I just wanted you to know the truth. And whatever happens next, I'm on your side. Even if Claire disowns me." She stood up and walked to the door. At the threshold, she turned around. "That fiancé, Jason, he was a good man. You broke off the engagement because of us, right? Because we constantly interfered, demanded, criticized. I didn't answer, but my silence was my answer." Maureen left, quietly closing the door behind her. I sat in the kitchen until late at night, rereading my old letters. Yes, I really did dream of a family, of a husband, children, a cozy home. And yes, I broke off my engagement to Jason 5 years ago because I couldn't stand the pressure. Maureen kept saying that he wasn't right for me, that he wasn't ambitious enough, that I was making a mistake. Claire added fuel to the fire, hinting that Jason was probably cheating on me because why else would he stay late at work? I couldn't take it. I told him I wasn't ready, that I needed time. He waited 2 months, then left. Now he's married, has a daughter, lives in another state. I saw his profile on social media. Happy faces, smiles, family photos. I could have had that life. But instead, I sit alone in a rented townhouse, painting furniture and fighting with my own family. The phone rang at 2 a.m. Unknown number. I picked up without thinking. "Hello? Patricia." Claire's voice was hysterical. "Rainer is gone. He took all the money and disappeared. I can't get through to him. He's not answering. And the people from the foundation, they say they'll check where the donations went, and if it turns out I lied, they'll take me to court. Patricia, what should I do?" I was silent. "Patricia, please," Claire sobbed. "I know you were right. I know. Rainer deceived me. He took the $9,000 I raised through the foundation and went somewhere with that. With Janice. He left me. With Marvin, with the debts, with everything. What should I do?" "I don't know, Claire," I replied quietly. "That's your problem. You created it yourself." I hung up and turned off the phone. The next morning, I woke up to a sharp, insistent knock on the door. I looked at the clock. It was 8 a.m. on Saturday. I wasn't expecting anyone. I threw on my robe, went to the door, and looked through the peephole. Claire was standing on the doorstep. No makeup, messy hair, crumpled t-shirt and jeans. She looked like she hadn't slept all night. I hesitated for a long time before opening the door, but something in her face, helplessness, despair, made me turn the key. "What do you want?" I asked without inviting her in. "To talk," Claire's voice was hoarse. "Please, Patricia. 5 minutes." I stepped back, letting her in. She came in and stopped in the middle of the hall, as if she didn't know where to go next. "The kitchen." I waved my hand, and we walked there in silence. Claire sat down at the table and buried her face in her hands. I stood by the sink, leaning against the counter, and waited. "I've lost everything," Claire finally said. "Rainer left with Janice. He took $9,000 from the charity fund, took my savings, another $3,000 I had stashed away for a rainy day. I called him 100 times, texted him. He blocked me. He disappeared, as if he never existed." I was silent. "The people from the fund are demanding Marvin's medical records," Claire continued. "I can't show them anything because they don't exist. Marvin is healthy. He's never been sick. Anemia, yes, But that was 3 months ago, and the doctor said it was gone. And I agreed to this lie because Rainer said we needed the money urgently, that otherwise we would lose the house, that the creditors would take everything. I believed him, or wanted to believe him. I don't know anymore. She raised her head and looked at me. Her eyes were red, her face swollen. You were right, Patricia, about everything. I lied. Rainer used me. He used Marvin. He used everyone. And I let him because I was afraid of being alone, because I thought that without him, I was nothing. What do you want from me? I asked quietly. I don't know, Claire smiled bitterly. Forgiveness? Sympathy? Money? I don't know. I didn't know who else to go to. Mom cried when I told her and said it was her fault for supporting Rainer. Viva stopped answering my calls. Everyone else found out about the lie with the fund, and now they look at me like I'm a criminal. She paused, then continued more quietly. I've always envied you, Patricia. You didn't know that, did you? You thought I was happy with my life. A husband, a child, a house. But I was jealous because you were smart, independent. You could earn your own money, make your own decisions, build your own life. And me? I got married at 20 because my mother pressured me, saying I had to settle down while I was still young. I gave birth to Marvin at 22 because Rainer wanted a child, and I thought that would keep him. But he didn't change. He continued to play cards, drink with his friends, disappear for days. And I sat at home with the child and told everyone how good I had it, because admitting the truth would mean admitting that my life was a sham. I listened and felt something changing inside. Not anger, not pity, something else. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Claire said. I don't have the right, but I'm asking for a chance to start over. I talked to my mom and we went to the notary last night. She rewrote my father's house. Half to me, half to you, as it should have been from the beginning. I know it doesn't make up for everything, but it's all I can do right now. I didn't expect this. My father's house is an old 2-story house on the outskirts of the town where we grew up. After his death, Maureen wanted to sell it and divide the money, but then she changed her mind and decided to leave it to Claire. I didn't fight it then. Why did you do it? I asked. Because it's the right thing to do. Claire wiped her eyes with her sleeve. And because I want Marvin to grow up knowing that he has an aunt who isn't afraid to tell the truth, and that his mother isn't a mercenary bitch, even if the truth hurts. She stood up, walked to the door, but turned around at the threshold. I'm not asking you to help me. I'll figure it out myself. I'll find a job, pay off my debts, return the money to the people from the fund. I don't know how, but I'll do it. Just, if you ever want to see Marvin, get in touch with me. I'll be happy to see you. He asks about you sometimes. He says that Aunt Pat always smells like coffee and pencils. She left, leaving me alone with a multitude of thoughts. I spent the whole day at home trying to figure out how I felt. Angry, relieved, tired, all of the above. In the evening, I called Leon. I don't know why. I just wanted to talk to someone who wasn't part of this chaos. Patricia? He picked up after the second ring. Is something wrong? No, I replied. Just, can we meet? I want to talk. Sure. My office in 20 minutes? Okay. I drove to the right street and went up to Leon's office. He greeted me with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to me. Sit down. Tell me. I told him about Claire's visit, about the house, about how she admitted she was jealous and wanted to start over. Leon listened attentively, nodded, and occasionally wrote something down in his notebook. And how do you feel? He asked when I finished. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe she's changed, but another part remembers all the years of lies, manipulation, and pain. How can I trust her again? Leon leaned back in his chair and rubbed his face with his hands. Can I tell you my story? I nodded. I had a family, too, he began. A wife, Estella, and a daughter, Lucy. I worked as a cop, spending 16 hours a day at work. I told myself I was doing it for them, to secure their future. But in reality, I was just hiding. from problems, from conflicts, from the need to be present. Estella asked me for more time, more attention. I promised, but nothing changed, and one day she took Lucy and left. She left a note. "I can't be with a ghost, Leon. I'm sorry." He fell silent, staring somewhere through me. I was furious. I thought she was unfair, selfish. I work for them, and she just takes and leaves me. But after a year and an official divorce, I realized she was right. I wasn't a husband. I wasn't a father. I was a shadow who came home to eat and sleep. I asked for forgiveness, tried to rebuild our relationship, but it was too late. Estella married someone else. Lucy got used to her new dad. I lost them forever. He looked at me. "I'm not saying you have to forgive your sister. That's your decision. But I would give a lot right now to go back in time and punch myself in the face and kick myself in the liver. We all do things we regret and often want to fix something, but we can't. So choose wisely so you won't regret not doing something later." His words touched something deep inside me. I nodded and finished my coffee. "Thank you, Leon." "You're welcome," he smiled. "By the way, about Rainer. I can find him if you want. Track down where he went, maybe help your sister get her money back, or at least bring him to justice. It's up to you." I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no, to leave Rainer in the past. But another part, the part that saw Claire's tears, that remembered Marvin, the innocent boy who was used as a tool, that part wanted justice. "Find him," I said. "Not for me, for Claire and Marvin. They deserve at least a chance to get back what he stole." Leon nodded. "Okay, I'll start tomorrow morning." I thanked him and drove home. In the evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I received a message from Maureen. "Patricia, I've organized a family meeting for tomorrow at 2 p.m. at my house. Claire, Marvin, and I will be there. I know you don't have to come, but if there's even the slightest chance you'll give us a chance, please come. We'll be waiting." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, delete it, forget it. But then I remembered Leon's words. I remembered Claire's face. I remembered the letters I wrote to my father, dreaming of a family where there was room for forgiveness. I replied, "I'll think about it." I was restless all the next day. I woke up early and tried to keep myself busy with household chores, but my thoughts kept returning to the meeting. Should I go or not? Give them a chance or leave everything as it is? At 1 o'clock, I made up my mind. I got dressed, got in the car, and drove to Maureen's house. The old little house on Elm Street where Claire and I grew up. The yard in front of the house was overgrown with weeds, and the paint on the walls was peeling. Maureen was getting old, and the house was aging with her. I parked, got out of the car, and walked up to the door. I knocked. Maureen opened the door almost immediately. She must have been waiting by the window. "Patricia," she smiled through her tears. "You came." "I came," I confirmed, and went inside. Claire was sitting at the table in the living room, and Marvin was on the floor next to her, drawing something on a large sheet of paper. He stood up when he saw me and smiled sincerely. "Hi, Aunt Pat." "Hi, Marvin," I replied, and my heart sank. He had grown so much in those 2 years. Dark curly hair, big brown eyes, a smile like his father's. "I'm drawing you a card," he said, and showed me the sheet of paper. There were bright flowers, the sun, and an inscription in crooked letters. "For Aunt Pat. Sorry we haven't seen each other." I crouched down to be at the same level as him. "That's a very nice card, thank you." "Mom said you're mad at us," Marvin said seriously. "But I don't want you to be mad. You're my aunt, right?" "Right," I confirmed and hugged him. He hugged me back, tightly, with childlike trust. Maureen wiped her eyes with a napkin, and Claire looked at us, unable to hide her tears. "Sit down, Patricia," Maureen said, pointing to a chair. "Please." I sat down. Maureen poured tea and put a plate of cookies on the table. We were silent for a few minutes, each of us weighing our words. Finally, Claire spoke. Patricia, I don't know where to start, but I want you to know that I'm going to look for a job. I already have a few interviews lined up. Administrator at a veterinary clinic, cashier at a supermarket, anything that will provide a stable income. I'll pay off my debts even if it takes years, and I'm going to therapy. I found a psychologist who specializes in toxic relationships. My first session is in a week. I listened and nodded. I'm not asking you to trust me right away, Claire continued. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for anything except the chance to try to be better. For Marvin. For myself. For us. Maureen also spoke up. I want to change too, Patricia. I realize I was a terrible mother to you. I pressured you, manipulated you, put Claire above you. I can't turn back time, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I've always been proud, even when I didn't show it. You are a strong, intelligent, independent woman, and I destroyed that in you because I was jealous. I sat and listened to their words, feeling something melt inside. It didn't disappear completely. The pain, the hurt, the anger remained, but they became smaller, less acute. I'm not ready, I said finally. I'm not ready to just come back and pretend nothing happened. Too many years, too many wounds, but I'm ready to try to take one step, if you take it first. What do you mean? Claire asked. No more non-disclosure agreements, I said firmly. No more shouting about money. No more pressure. If we do this, we do it honestly. No manipulation, no lies. If any of you break this rule, I'm leaving for good, and I'm not coming back. Understood? Maureen and Claire nodded. Understood, Maureen said. I agree, Claire added. Marvin came up to me and handed me a card. Here, I worked hard for you. I took the card and smiled at him. Thanks, Marvin. I'll hang it on the fridge at home. We sat for another hour, talking cautiously, avoiding sensitive topics. Maureen talked about the garden she wanted to restore in the spring. Claire shared her plans for work. Marvin showed me his drawings. It was strange, unusual, but not unpleasant. When I was about to leave, Claire came up to me. Patricia, one more thing. Leon Barker called me this morning. He said he found Rainer. He's in the next state with Janice. Leon says he can help me file a lawsuit to get at least some of the money back. Did you hire him to find Rainer? I nodded. Yes, not for myself. For you and Marvin. Claire hugged me, sharply, tightly. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't answer, just stood in my sister's embrace for a few seconds, then stepped back. I'm leaving, I said. I'll call you during the week. Maureen walked me to the door. Patricia, if you want to talk about anything, I'm always here. I know, I replied, and went to the car. As I got behind the wheel, I glanced at Marvin's card on the passenger seat. Bright flowers, sunshine, crooked, childish handwriting. Something warm and light stirred in my chest. Maybe we wouldn't be the perfect family. Maybe the scars would remain forever. But it was a start. Small, timid, but a start. I started the car and drove home, not knowing what lay ahead, but feeling for the first time in a long time that I was moving in the right direction. 6 months flew by unnoticed. Spring arrived, the time of year when everything comes to life and it feels like life is giving you a second chance. I was sitting in a small coffee shop on the corner of 4th Street waiting for Leon. We agreed to meet here at 7 in the evening, after his workday. Over the months, our meetings had become regular. First business, then friendly, and now, I didn't know what to call it. We didn't discuss status. We didn't label things. We just spent time together, and it was good. Leon walked in at 7:15, wearing his usual jeans and dark shirt, with a slight smile on his face. He sat down across from me and ordered a coffee. "How was your day?" he asked. "Fine," I replied. I finished the visualization of the crib for the spring catalog. Celia even praised me, which is rare. "That's good," he smiled. "I have news, too. Rainer was arrested after all." I gasped. "Where?" "In Ohio. He tried to clean out Janice's bank account. He took $4,000 out and disappeared. Janice filed a report with the police, and they tracked him down a few days later. It turns out he's wanted in 2 other fraud cases. He's under investigation now, and the trial is set for the summer." I was silent, digesting the information. "Does Claire know?" I asked. "Yes. I called her this morning. She says her lawyer has already filed a lawsuit to get the money back. The chances are slim. Rayner spent almost everything. But she might get something back." "What about Janice?" I couldn't help asking. "She went back to work at the same bar," Leon smiled ironically. "It turns out Rayner wasn't the first boyfriend of hers to disappear for several months. They've long been used to her vacations there. She told the police that she always knew he was a con man, but thought this time would be different. Classic." I thought about Janice, about Claire, about all the women who believed Rayner. How many were there? And how many more would there be if he was released? Although, that's more interesting to Claire than to me. Over the past 6 months, Claire and I have talked several times, cautiously, without pressure. She really was changing, not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually. She found a job as an administrator at a veterinary clinic on Maple Avenue and settled into a regular schedule. Maureen helped with Marvin, picking him up from school, feeding him while Claire was at work. They lived modestly, without unnecessary expenses, but steadily. Claire officially divorced Rayner 3 months after his disappearance. She filed the papers and won the case due to his absence. Now she was Claire Devlin again, not Coleridge. It was symbolic. "What about your mom?" Leon asked. "She's trying," I sighed. "She lives in her parents' house and tends the garden. She calls me once a week to ask how I'm doing, but she doesn't pressure me. It's strange, but nice." Leon nodded and finished his coffee. "You're doing great, Patricia. Not everyone can give a second chance after what you've been through." "I'm not sure I gave them a second chance," I admitted. "Rather, I gave myself a chance to try to live differently, without constant anger, without resentment. That doesn't mean I've forgotten everything. It's just, I don't want to hold it in anymore." "That's wise," he said, and reached across the table. I took his hand and we sat like that for a few minutes, silently, holding hands. The following Saturday, Maureen invited me to lunch. I agreed, although I was a little nervous. I arrived at 2 in the afternoon and parked near the house. The garden looked different. Maureen had really worked on it. The weeds had been removed and tulips and daffodils had been planted in the flower beds. It looked fresh and lively. Maureen met me at the door and hugged me. Not for long, not intrusively, just briefly. "Come in, Claire and Marvin are already here." We went into the kitchen. Claire was standing at the stove, frying something in a pan. Marvin was sitting at the table putting together a puzzle. He jumped up when he saw me. "Aunt Pat, you came." "Of course I came." I smiled and hugged him. We had lunch together. Potatoes, fried chicken, vegetable salad. We talked about everyday things. Work, school, the weather. Claire talked about her therapy. Cautiously, without going into details. But I could see that it was really helping her. Maureen shared her plans for the summer. She wanted to repair the porch and paint the fence. After lunch, Marvin asked me to go to the park with him. Claire looked at me questioningly and I nodded. "Let's go." The 3 of us, Marvin, Claire, and I, went to the nearest park, 3 blocks from the house. It was a small green area with a playground, benches, and walking paths. Marvin immediately ran to the swings but returned a few minutes later with a ball. "Aunt Pat, want to play?" he asked, handing me the ball. "Sure," I said, taking the ball, and we started throwing it back and forth. Claire sat on a bench nearby, watching us. I could feel her gaze, but I didn't take my eyes off Marvin. He laughed, ran, and caught the ball, not always skillfully, but with such enthusiasm that I smiled too. "Aunt Pat," he said suddenly, stopping, "why did you take so long to come? I thought you didn't want to see me anymore." I crouched down to be at his level. I just needed some time, but I'm here now, and that's what matters, right? He nodded seriously. "Right." "Will you come again?" "I will," I promised. "I promise." He hugged me tightly with childlike trust. I hugged him back and felt something warm spread through my chest. Not everything was perfect, not everything was forgiven, But it was a start. Marvin ran off again, throwing the ball high into the air. I got up, caught it, and threw it back. We played for another half hour until Claire called us, saying it was time to go home. On the way back to the house, Claire walked beside me, Marvin running ahead. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" I looked at her. "For giving us a chance, for not turning away forever. I know we don't deserve it, but thank you." I didn't answer right away. I thought about everything that had happened over the past few months, about the pain, the hurt, the anger, about Leon, who taught me to let go, about Marvin, who was not to blame for the mistakes of adults, about myself, who finally allowed myself not to be perfect, not to keep everything inside. "I don't know if we'll ever become a real family," I said honestly. "Maybe not. Maybe there will always be scars, but I'm no longer afraid to be myself, even if it means being alone, because the loneliness you choose for yourself is not a punishment. It's freedom." Claire nodded and wiped her eyes. "I understand, and I'm grateful even for that." We reached the house and said goodbye. I got in the car and started the engine. I looked in the rearview mirror. Marvin was waving at me from the porch. I waved back and drove away. That evening, Leon called. "Hi, how was your day?" "Good," I replied. "I was with Claire and Marvin in the park." "It was not bad." "That's great," he said. "Listen, I wanted to ask you something. I have a free weekend next week. Maybe we could go somewhere. The lake, the mountains, wherever you want." I thought about it. A weekend together. It was the next step, a more serious one. But why not? The lake, I decided. I haven't been there in a long time. "It's a date," I heard the smile in his voice. "See you on Friday then." I hung up and looked at Marvin's postcard, which had been hanging on the refrigerator all this time. Bright flowers, sunshine, crooked, childish handwriting. For Aunt Pat. "Sorry we haven't seen each other." Maybe my life wasn't a fairy tale. Maybe I didn't get the perfect family from the ad, but I got something else. Honesty. Freedom. The ability to choose who to be with and how. I took a cup of tea and went out onto the small balcony of my townhouse. The evening was quiet, smelling of spring. Music was playing somewhere in the distance. Children were laughing in the street. I stood leaning against the railing and just breathed. Life went on. Not perfect, but mine. And that was enough. The next morning, when I woke up to the sunlight streaming through the curtains, there was a message from Maureen on my phone. "Patricia, Marvin has been talking about yesterday in the park all morning. Thank you for coming. If you want, come again. We'd love to have you." I smiled, put my phone away, and got up to get ready for the new day. Ahead of me was a week of work, a meeting with Leon on Friday, and a weekend at the lake. Ahead of me was life, unpredictable, complicated, but real, and I was ready to accept it as it was.